Oh, I need my keyboard. Oh. Oh, good. It pulled the stats and the stream thing back up. Okay, good. That's great. I didn't think it was going to restore the docs that way. That's fantastic. Okay, let me move my keyboard. And let me move my wrist rest here so it will work for my my iPad. Let's get the iPad into position because I'm going to get started pretty quick here. Pretty soon. I guess I should not pretty quick, but pretty soon. So I don't waste any time. So I'm going to go ahead and send all my messages out very quickly. I already have them preloaded. So it's just a matter of going to each position inside of Discord and hitting the enter key. Okay. All those have been posted. And I just have to post that on Blue Sky. I'm not even bothering posting Twitter anymore. I am done with it. Twitter is basically dead to me now. You know? So there we go. Okay, done. That's it. All right. I'll give this a minute or two. Happy Wednesday. I mean, nobody's really... Oh, jeez, the microphone is completely skewed. I don't think this makes a difference to the sound, but I'm going to adjust this because it looks really stupid. So, sorry if you hear a little noise. That's me moving the mic so it's more centered towards me. And yeah, there we go. That's much better. Okay. Wednesday evening. Welcome to the Wednesday evening stream. And I will probably have to take, depending on how long this goes, it'll probably be about an hour. But I'll probably have to take a break to feed my dog, just so that she doesn't get upset with me. Anybody who has dogs, especially if they like to eat, which most dogs do, you'll be very familiar with the fact that your dogs have an internal clock that they run by. Let's go ahead and go to the getting started screen. Might as well get going here. And they do not like that clock to be off in terms of when they get fed. Or they tend to stare an awful lot at you. There are many Instagram and probably TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, so I couldn't tell you. But it's certainly if they're on, I just assume if there are things on Instagram, then there is some kind of corresponding mirror universe version over on TikTok. But if there isn't, certainly on Instagram, there are many videos of dogs that are very humorous that have to do with their high level of attention to their feeding schedules. Yeah. So if you're on Instagram a lot, depending on what you follow, you've probably seen a few of those. And they are, I have to say, highly accurate. So, okay. We're going to keep going with Shodan here. Doing some more color work on this particular image because I do want to, at some point finish it. I'm going to... I guess I'm going to leave that. Okay, let's do a... Just looking at where I want to put these reds. Let's put a red here. Put that right in there. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else has been watching, but there's a really good series on Netflix called Pluto that I believe is an updated version of the classic Japanese manga Astro Boy. Now, I don't know if Astro Boy... Honestly, I never read any Astro Boy. I know what Astro Boy is just from pop culture osmosis, but I've never actually read it. But I understand that, it's one of those foundational work type things. So I've never seen or really read any other version of the story, so I don't know. From what I've read, or from what I've read of this series, this is apparently a more faithful adaptation of it than there has typically been in the past. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I can tell you that Pluto is a pretty good series. That I can tell you without having any knowledge of the work that came before, or needing any knowledge of it, because it's just good. I like it quite a bit. Oh, there, I don't like that quite a bit. We have a line. We have an escape line, which is a 39er. I knew it. Of course it's a 39er. Ooh, there's another one right there. Whoa, why did that? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's okay. That can go. Oh, man, I missed a whole bunch of them. Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't make that much of a difference because it's very easy to get rid of those. Is there anything else that I missed while I'm in here? No, I think I got it. Okay, back to our shading, or coloring block, I guess I should say. Yeah. Yeah, Pluto's really good. I'm impressed with it so far. Good animation style. It's a good story. I have noticed several familiar voices. One that surprised me, to be honest, and the rest that really haven't, that I've recognized. There's several Ghost in the Shell and other American dubbed Japanese series or anime series. If you've heard them, you will recognize some of the voices. But I definitely recognized Bateau from Ghost in the Shell. Some of the other ones have been in multiple shows, so it's not even just recognizing one. But then in episode, I want to say it was episode 3, maybe? Could be wrong on that. But whatever, there's an episode where there is an individual who is not a fan of robots. And there's a point where we get a flashback sequence to his childhood, which includes his father. And when the father started speaking, I thought, wow, that voice sounds very familiar. And I thought I knew who it was, so I did a check. And sure enough, I'm not going to be able to pronounce the individual's name, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But it is the person who did the voice for Adam Jensen from Deus Ex Human Revolution and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. A very distinctive voice. Once you hear it, you know it. And yeah, that individual does the voice of the father in that one episode. And I was very delighted to hear his voice because he's got a good voice. I mean, you know, he sounds like Adam Jensen, but it's not so much that it's distracting or, you know, negative. It's just that you hear it. I mean, you hear it instantly because if you're a fan of that game, then that character is kind of, you know, you've got it baked into your mind, and he speaks a lot in that game. You know, outside of the, of course, memed, I didn't ask for this thing, does that. He doesn't do that in the series. I'm saying there is that. So you will, you know, it's kind of, again, certain performances just kind of lock you into something, which, you know, look, there's worse things in the world than to be forever associated with what, in my opinion, is an excellent game. So, but I heard his voice and instantly knew who it was. Did not even have to think about it. I went on IMDb just to make sure, because the thing is that there are voice actors who sound very similar to each other sometimes, depending on how they're doing their voices. So I've been wrong before, but that one, I probably wouldn't have bet a lot of money before I looked it up, but I would have probably bet some money, and I would have won because I knew the voice. Great voice. But like I said, the series is very good. I have not finished it yet, so I don't. Hold on, I think I have to cough, so let me just move this. Oh yeah, let me get a drink of water really quick. There we go. I don't know if this is a series that is going to be set up for sequels. I kind of hope not. Not because I don't love the story and the characters, but I just, anytime Netflix sets something up for a sequel, it's just, I just, you know, I like series with finite endings. I don't mind series that go on for a while, but I have to know they're going to go on for a while. Otherwise, I tend to like series that have finite lives. They come on, enjoy them, then they end. That's kind of a thing that people don't want to do anymore, but I'm kind of bummed out about it because I think there's a lot of... Did I ever use this color? I think I did. Yep, that's that color. Okay. I miss days where we had, again, series that knew when to conclude, and, you know, we just don't get a lot of it anymore. Ooh, that's not a bad color. It's kind of an olive color. Oh, yeah, that's different from other stuff we've gotten before, so let's go ahead and use that. We're on 42. Yeah, we're on. You know, so, I don't know. My hunch is that it's probably set up for a sequel, which, you know, I know the reception to this series has been very good, but that doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, with Netflix, that doesn't seem to matter if there is a large consensus that a show is good. They have some kind of internal metrics that they use, which I don't think they've ever exposed how they calculate any of this stuff. Probably because it would reveal that a lot of times they're making it up. or it's not what they say it is. How about that? And so I don't know. I don't I don't trust when a series does well. I mean, and to be fair, I shouldn't level this as if it's a Netflix specific problem. I really don't trust any new streaming series. I don't. I wait unless it has an ending or there's something that makes me believe that it's actually going to last. I just don't count on it anymore, which is a real bummer. I mean, it's not great to feel like, oh, you shouldn't get invested in the show, but that's how it is. It's unfortunately just a byproduct of the way that it goes. I'm just trying to find a color I like here. I guess that green isn't bad. Yeah, maybe I'll brighten it up a little bit. I don't know if I quite wanted that to... No, I'm going to leave it dark. It's good. Okay. So yeah, Pluto's good. And I don't know how it's going to conclude, but it really doesn't matter. I like it. It's an interesting... It's a heavy series at times, I'll say that. I don't know that I had read a little bit about it, so I knew I wasn't completely surprised by some of the themes that are being covered, but they are nonetheless at times pretty heavy, which is not a bad thing. I think it's great. I have to watch the Monarch series. I have not yet, because I'll watch anything Godzilla's in. I am still one of the few fans, I think, of the Space Godzilla film with him, because I like Space Godzilla's design a lot. Even though I will admit, not the best of the Godzilla films. The problem is we sort of, and when I say we, I mean Godzilla fans, we sort of fool ourselves about things. Most of the Godzilla films are not actually that good. What you're really doing in most of these movies is, I'm not saying all of them, and actually, you can probably decide whether my point is valid or not by the fact that I am not the biggest fan. I mean, I shouldn't even say the biggest. I am not a fan of, well, okay, I want to qualify this correctly. I don't think Shin Godzilla is a bad movie. It's just not my type of Godzilla movie. I'll say it like that. I get what it was supposed to be doing. I understand. I've read kind of the point of it, because I admit, when I first watched it, I went, I don't even understand what this movie is trying to accomplish. And then I read some of, what the goals were and everything, and it makes complete sense. I get it. Once I understood what the movie was trying to do, I got it. You can see it. Absolutely. But I don't like his design. It's just not for me. I'll just say it like that. I don't want to spend 10 minutes slamming a movie. It's just not for me. It's just not my type of Godzilla film. I tend to like the classic ones, where monsters show up and they beat on each other for a little bit, and that's it. It doesn't have to be, I'm not looking for, Hamlet or anything. Just your basic good time with a movie. And a lot of times Godzilla films can deliver that. Let me just see, I want to get the right size here. That looks right. Okay, that was the pen I need to use. There we go. Yep, that's good. So I like the new American ones. I know some people are... I mean, I don't like the human stuff. I will admit, the family drama stuff that they put into... Well, the middle one, really. The first one, I have a strange opinion of the first one, I'll be honest. I don't think that... What's that guy's name? Elizabeth Olsen is playing the wife. I don't remember what the guy's name is who's playing the husband, the military guy. I think it's... whatever, he was Quicksilver. Anyway, whatever that guy's name is. I don't think he's a bad actor, and I don't necessarily dislike the film. I just don't really care either. That has been, and people have pointed this out, one of the big failings of the new Godzilla films is that they don't create characters you really actually care about. You understand what their function is. You know why they're there. It's very clear. In fact, there's very little about these movies that is subtle. But you don't really care. They're just kind of there because there has to be a character of this type, or they think there has to be. And I guess you have to have some kind of human element, although I would bet somebody could make a movie where there's no humans and it would still work. In any event, it doesn't matter. So the biggest one of the biggest hurdles with the new films is the human characters are just not fundamentally all that interesting to follow. And a lot of people got bothered by the first movie because Godzilla himself, or herself, I don't remember, because weren't there eggs? Or no, maybe that isn't the, well, whatever. The Godzilla, the creature, in whatever respect it appears, because I know it's flipped genders too, but whatever it is supposed to be in the first Godzilla, was it 2014 film? A lot of people were upset about the fact that Godzilla is not in it very much. Now, that didn't really bother me, because I felt like it was a very, because look, you all know Godzilla is going to be in there, right? So it is kind of fun to have a movie that intentionally holds back on showing him for a while until you get to the big kind of final fight. I think they said he's in, I think Godzilla's 14 minutes of the movie or something, some small number. And a lot of people just cannot let go of that. They just will never let that particular aspect of it go. And I'm okay with it. I think it actually works in service of the film pretty well. I don't necessarily love the huge thighs version of Godzilla. I know why they did it, but it looks a little silly. It doesn't have to be, I don't care if it functions better in terms of like weight, mass, and all that stuff, but it looks a little silly. Godzilla looks like he's, I don't know, he looks a little overweight. Not a huge deal. Doesn't break the movie for me or anything like that. Oh yeah, that's the wrong brush. Let me try this one. But that's the only aspect of the new design I don't like. Everything else I think works really well. I think they did a really good job in redesigning that creature. Certainly better than the other ones. Of course. There's always these people. How do I... Jeez. So stupid. Well, whatever. I don't... You know what? You can't delete messages people send you? You don't have a way to do that? Huh. What does that little button do? I don't know what any of these things do. Well, whatever. Chat settings. Show mod icons. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Trash that. Goodbye. I don't care. I don't need any promotion. I don't care. I also don't want to look at it in case somebody actually types something I want to read. So goodbye, whatever your automated bot name was. I could not care less. You were never going to sell me anything to begin with. Yeah, not like the creature design from the Matthew Broderick film. Oh boy, was that 98, I want to say, that movie? Boy, that movie. I actually, to be fair about it, I don't think that the Broderick Godzilla design itself was necessarily bad. Again, I understand where it was coming from. I know why a lot of people didn't like it. And the movie also is not good. It's just that simple. It's not a good film. I don't necessarily think it's completely without any merit, but barely any. And not enough to save it, honestly. Just not enough. So, but again, but with that movie, my problem isn't as much the redesign. But I understand why, it was a radical redesign of the character. Not one that I don't think it was done brainlessly. I don't think it's a terrible direction to go. I just don't think that most people were quite ready for that much of a reinvention of a character that they're very familiar with. Now, again, that is not to say that I think that you can't redesign Godzilla. You absolutely can redesign Godzilla. They've done it. The Japanese films have done it a number of times. And it's not as if, let's also just be fair about it, it's not as if all the Japanese oh, my thing, I know, I just saw that my thing isn't mirroring. Sorry, hold on a minute, I'll get it back. It's not as if the Japanese redesigns are all bulletproof either. They are certainly not. Some of the Japanese redesigns are not good. Especially some of the early ones where they gave him these really weird googly eyes. It's not a good look. You know, it's not something where you go, oh yeah, that's a great redesign. You kind of look at it, I mean, it's of its time. So I understand. There's partially just the thing where I don't know that there was always the comprehension of, well, obviously in the early days they didn't know what Godzilla was going to evolve into. They didn't know it was going to become a creature design and a general, sorry for yawning, a general creature that was going to become internationally loved. I don't think they had the full. I mean, I'm sure some people thought that would happen, but I don't think everybody knew that. But yeah, some of the redesigns are not good, even from the Japanese studio perspective. So I don't necessarily come down that hard. I believe it's 98 on the 98 Godzilla. What do they call that? They have a name for that creature design now. There's a name for it. Can't remember what it is, but Lizzie. I think I call it Lizzie. Maybe I don't remember. But the iguana design. If you've never seen it, you should go look at it because it's interesting. It's interesting. But I know why it was. That in combination. If the movie was excellent, I don't think the redesign would be seen as, it wouldn't be judged as harshly. But unfortunately, the movie also wasn't good. So you had there are elements of it. Before Godzilla really shows up, his kind of build up when they're showing him on his way, some of that stuff is really well done. I think that holds up very well. But then once Godzilla actually arrives and is kind of, and then they try to do a Jurassic Park thing with it. It's just not a very good movie. There's no other way to really put it, but it is not a great film, which is probably not a big surprise. I don't remember when it was announced. I mean, I went and saw it in theaters, like a lot of people did, just because I was a Godzilla fan and I wanted to see it. But I remember people being skeptical that it was going to translate well. Which, again, makes the 2014 version, which I like quite a bit, and the subsequent movies all the more surprising because they do work pretty well, I think. Again, most people's problem with the first one, there's a combination of problems. One is that the humans are very bland. Unfortunately, that's a problem that does not go away even as you go forward in the films. Even Godzilla vs. Kong, which I just rewatched and enjoyed, also has that problem where, that movie is... How long is Godzilla vs. Kong? I don't remember. Let me take a quick look. I want to say it's over 2 hours. I could be wrong about that, but I have a hunch it's over 2 hours. Let's take a quick look. Godzilla vs. Kong. I know this is riveting to listen to, but I'm really just curious about this. Godzilla vs. Kong was... How long? Hour 53 minutes. Okay, so just short. Sorry for the yawn. Just short of 2 hours long. Now, I'm telling you right now that you could have cut that way down by jettisoning some of the human being stuff, because it's not... I appreciate that they brought back Millie Bobby Brown, is that her name? I know, well, maybe I'm not screwing it up. Whatever, the actress who plays Eleven in Stranger Things. So they brought her back, and her father briefly, as characters from King of the Monsters, which was the second of the modern American Godzilla films. And she's fine. I mean, she's a good actress. I have no problem with her. Oh, I think I'm going to sneeze. Let me mute this real quick. Whew. Yep, sure did. Anyway, I don't have any problem with her. The nice that they brought the character back. But, that goes on way too long. There's a podcaster who's a conspiracy theorist and all this other stuff. And it just, and her friend, and none of it is awful necessarily. I'm not saying it's the worst thing I've ever seen by any stretch. It is far from the worst thing I've ever seen. I've watched some really bad movies. So it's not that it's terrible in itself, but it all feels unnecessary. That's the biggest... Oh, man, I'm sorry about the yawning. I really am. That's the biggest problem that the human characters... Whoa, did I accidentally erase that? I sure did. I sure did. I'll fix that. The biggest problem with these films and the way that they treat human characters is they just never really feel all that necessary. That's the issue. Just to be honest about it, that's what the problem is. It's that you sit there and go, okay, I get what they're doing here, but does the movie really need this? And almost always the answer is no, it doesn't need it. It's fine without it. So why are we doing this? And there's usually not a good answer to it. Or my suspicion is that they don't have the faith in human audiences, in an American audience to understand that the draw of a Godzilla film is Godzilla. Which seems really stupid, but I really do think a lot of it comes from that. I think a lot of it is that they're like, well, gee, I don't know, are they really just going to sit there and wait for the creature to attack things? Well, yeah, it's a Godzilla film. Yeah, but don't we have to have human drama? Well, I guess, but they're really just going to be fine if Godzilla shows up and thwomps things. I don't know. I think we need emotional arcs. Okay, I guess. And that's how it goes. Where did that line go? Jeez, I lost it. I lost it because there it is. I found it. And also they just didn't do, there's just not that much interesting about those characters. You know exactly where it's going. You know exactly what's going to happen. And there too, not always the worst thing. I'm not saying that stories have to always reinvent the wheel. I am not making that argument. Absolutely not. Stories can follow traditional routes, and that's fine. There is a value in doing that as well. If you don't know you can reinvent the wheel, then you probably shouldn't try to. And but the characters never feel compelling. You never, at least in my opinion, I never feel like those characters, I don't remember them 10 minutes after the movie's over. I don't remember anything about them. I know they're related, and, I remember in King of the Monsters, the mom, I don't even remember why the mom and dad split up, but they did, and she's being manipulated by Charles Dance for some reason, which I don't really remember. I guess he wanted Mothra, maybe, or something. Again, I don't remember, but I remember the fights. The battles were great. When Rodan showed up, yeah, and Ghidra, like, all that stuff was awesome. That was great, because that's what, I think deep down, that's what the director actually cared about, was the actual monster stuff. The stuff that most people would care about. And that's what I mean about it's sort of funny, because even in the Japanese ones, you're kind of just waiting for the monsters to start thrashing each other. I'm not saying that's all there is to those movies, but that's a thing where there's this idea, I think, that, people need Godzilla to be more than that. And I really don't think that's the case. I really don't. I don't think most people need Godzilla to do much more than show up and blow stuff up and breathe atomic fire. That is what a Godzilla movie is. And I think and again, I want to be really specific in how I say this. I am not saying in any way that you cannot do a more intellectual Godzilla film. In fact, I think the 2014 movie, was trying to do that by not showing him all the time, by holding him back a little bit, by, having the stuff with the family and whatever the actor's name, who I'm sorry, I don't remember right now. Every time he would show up, that type of stuff. I think that's what they were trying to do. The problem is, again, that character, oh, my dog's got a burr on her belly. How did you think? Oh, man, that hurts me. Here, let me get that off you. There we go. She tends to roll around the grass, and she gets burrs sometimes, and I don't always find them right away. I don't always find them right away, huh? No, I don't. So that's what I think they were trying to do. But again, that character wasn't that interesting. He was not that interesting. The characters still have to be interesting. You still have to want to care about them somehow. And I think that was the failure of that movie, is they did not create a compelling character there. Which I don't blame on the actors. That's the material they're given. A lot of people do that. They blame the actors for bad writing. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm not blaming the actors for that. You act with what's given to you. And if what's given to you is not that great, then what's given to you is not that great. And there's nothing you can do about it. So, you know, I sort of feel bad for them, really, because I don't think anybody wants to be. Well, I mean, I'm sure some people think it's funny to be in a bad movie, but I don't think most actors want to do that. I think most actors want to have good material that they can engage with, and I don't feel like that movie gave those actors really much to do. Not really. Well, it's just, again, my opinion. Still, I like the movie. This is sort of the contradiction of it. I think the movie is good. I enjoy it. I just rewatched it not that long ago. Like I said, I just rewatched, I don't know if I said, I watched all three. And what I got to do is start looking for fan edits. I know there are fan edits of these films that are going to be far superior. And I guarantee you, I haven't looked, but I would bet some money that somebody has taken Godzilla vs. Kong and trimmed a good, I'm going to go ahead and say 30 minutes out of it, and I'd be willing to bet some more money that 30 minutes is almost universally the human beings. Because the fights in that are really good. I like it. I like Godzilla vs. Kong. Again, I don't want to come off like I don't like these movies. I do like these movies. I just think that they all tend to fail, or they tend to have problems in the same areas, which is that they have somehow not managed to hire somebody on any of these movies who can make interesting human characters. Supposedly, Godzilla -1 does that pretty well. The new one, the new Japanese one. So I am looking forward to seeing that, because I don't think a Godzilla film shouldn't have people in it. It should. You have to be able to show the destruction and the toll of it, and what's going on with it. So I'm not one of these people. I have seen people who said a Godzilla film should never have people in it. Well, okay. I'm not going to go that far. They've sort of done that with, I think Destroy All Monsters was kind of like that, which was fine. It wasn't bad, but I don't know that that's necessarily a template you want to just follow blindly either. I think, as with so much in the creative realm, if you get the right person to do it, I think you can have a good film with human characters. I just don't think that the American films have managed to hit that right yet. Instead, it has been very forgettable characters that I don't think most people, when they walk out of a movie theater, ever think about again. Never again. When you're there, oh yeah, it's all working, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Minute you leave, forgotten. I don't think I have those characters. Okay, I don't think they don't really last. Yeah, that's a better color. I like that color. So, again, I don't blame actors for that. I'm not going to blame the actors for doing the material that's being put in front of them. I mean, that's their job. Did I really forget to put that? I forgot to put that other friggin' line in. One of the whole points of me doing this was to put that line in, and I completely forgot it. Okay, let me get that in there. Oh boy, okay. There. That line. Let's kill that. So, I am looking forward to -1. I know that they just started releasing stuff for Godzilla vs. Kong too. I'll watch that. Oh. Wait, did I talk about this already? Did I talk about this in the last stream? Did I talk about Mechagodzilla? All right, I might have, so I'm not going to do it again. But Pluto, I will recommend. Pluto's good. Pluto is actually excellent. I would say I have watched a lot of modern anime stuff, and I will tell you that most of it doesn't work for me. Pluto works very well. I think they did a great job with that. The pacing's really good. The visuals I like a lot. It appears to be mostly traditional hand-drawn with, computer assistance with stuff, which is fine. It feels a lot like the first standalone Complex series that they did with Ghost in the Shell, which, again, I think that's good. I thought that series largely balanced the CG elements and the traditional elements really well. So, I like the look of Pluto is good. The music's good. Voice performances are very good. Whoa, what is that? What is that? What is that shadow across the, it's not that. Oh, is it? What is that? There's something on there. Is it? Oh, it's black. Okay, I got it. All right, just making sure. I was like, whoa, what is this? I got it. Okay. Yeah, Pluto's good. Pluto's good. So I would definitely recommend that to people if you're at all interested and you have Netflix. That's a good series. I like it as kind of a... Again, it feels very connected to older style Japanese anime, which I always liked. My kind of golden era for that is really the 80s into the early 90s. Of course, the high point, as I've mentioned many times, or maybe I haven't, but I probably have, is Akira, which remains the gold standard of just amazingly excellent Japanese anime. I so adore that movie. I mean, I just love that film. I mean, yeah. What a great movie. What a great movie Akira is. Okay, that doesn't look right at all. Where does that look right? Let's try that. Yep, that's okay. I like that. It's one of these things, I've heard people say this, and I completely agree with the idea of it, is, you know, movies that you wish you could experience for the first time again with no knowledge. Which, don't get me wrong, I've watched Akira, without exaggerating, probably in my entire life, I've watched Akira, I'm going to say 60 to 75 times. Well, maybe more. Now that I think about it, maybe it's 50 or 60. 50 to 60, somewhere there. I've watched a lot. I watch it at least a couple of times a year. Because it's just... But I remember seeing that for the first time and just being blown away. I didn't know what I was looking at, really. It was in a comic book shop in a mall where I grew up. A mall which I think still exists, but at this point, I mean, even before I moved away out of New York, it was on its last legs. But it was called the South Hills Mall in Poughkeepsie, New York. And there was a comic book shop in that mall. I even remember I remember everything about this particular experience. This comic book shop, I think there were 3 in the mall at that time. This is, when I was younger, comic book shops were real comic book shops, not what a lot of times they try to pass off as comic book shops now. But comic book shops were very common. And I mean real comic book shops. Where it was before nerd was a thing that lots of people wanted to be, before that term was popular, all that stuff. It used to be that all the weirdos and the outcasts and the rejects all hung out in comic book stores because we were the only ones who read comics and watched Japanese anime and liked Star Wars and all this stuff. Now, of course, it's all completely mainstream, which I think is good. I don't want to be somebody who says, oh, only certain people can enjoy certain. I'm not one of those people. But I remember this comic book store. That looks terrible. I've got to fix that. Oh, good. It's all the same thing. This is going to make it real easy. Anyway, this comic book store was in the center of the mall, where a lot of malls were like this, where this one was set up like, I guess, like a cross, where it kind of had 4 main branches that shot off. Well, or not really a cross. Well, sort of, because crosses have the shorter. So yeah, it's kind of the 2 long ends and then like shorter offshoots on the sides. Although, yeah, so it would be kind of like an X or a cross. And the comic book store was near the food court in the center, overlooking basically like a little, I guess you would call it an indoor courtyard. I don't know what else you would call it. That's what it was. And I went in this comic book store pretty frequently. Probably because when I was younger again, malls were kind of cool. So you want to go hang out at the mall. Now, not so much, but at that time, that was the happening place to be. I'm using happening, which is a very outdated term, but that was the popular place to be. I'll say that. We'll do that. No, I'm going to curve it more like that. Yes, that looks good. So this one again was in the center, and it overlooked this kind of, where you could sit and eat or whatever, just sit and wait for your parents, things like that usually. Anyway, and I would, when my mom and I would go there, or my mom or my dad, whatever, whoever, inevitably where they would go to shop, I would go off to the comic book store because I liked comics. And they had a little TV mounted. It was a CRT, an old tube television. If you don't know what a tube television is, you can look it up. But basically a very fat television, honestly, and not HD by any stretch of the imagination. And so they had this TV sitting up there, and a lot of times they were playing. A lot of times it was movies like Star Wars would be playing. You go in there, oh, Return of the Jedi is playing or whatever it is. And, it's just kind of background stuff for, while you were shopping for your comics. Just something to have on that was nerd-oriented, whatever. And that was what it was there for. And I remember going in one day to get some comics. And, of course, the TV was on. And there was a movie I had never seen, heard of, in a style I really didn't know much about, that was playing. And I distinctly remember the scene that I was watching, which is the scene in Akira, which if you're familiar with the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, go watch this movie immediately because it's amazing. But anyway, in the movie, there's a scene where one of the characters, whose name is Tetsuo, this is a character who has been experimented on and now has psychic powers. Problem is, Tetsuo is not really so much in control of those powers. He knows he's got them, but he can't really. I mean, we're well into the movie at this point too, and I think I've read the comics. The comics play a little bit differently than the movie appears to. In the movie, my read of it was always that it was. Because in the comics, in the Akira manga, to use the proper term, one of the reasons that Tetsuo starts having problems is because he's not learning to control his abilities. Instead, he's just taking drugs that allow him to channel these abilities better. But the problem is you can't, one of the characters says you can't really do that. That's you're short-circuiting the powers, essentially. I'm very, 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 I'm paraphrasing massively here. But the movie further paraphrases because it condenses what are multiple volumes and pages of story into 2 hours, which is very difficult to do with a story that's as big and sprawling as Akira. Anyway, in the comic book store, I look up and I see the scene where Tetsuo, at this point, who is about to completely lose control of his abilities, he's right there. And he sits on a throne, and he's already lost his arm, and he's rebuilt himself a metal cybernetic arm. And he's sitting on this stone throne in a Olympic stadium that Japan built for Olympic Games that haven't happened yet. So it's mostly constructed, but not completely. And so there's a throne. Why there would be an Olympic throne, I don't know. I get that's probably a Japanese thing, because I certainly know American Olympics has ever had a throne that I'm aware of. But anyway, there's a concrete or a stone throne, and he's sitting on it in agony because his powers are beginning to really overtake him now. And his metal arm, which has metal parts and then wiring, you start seeing the wires seep out of his arm, and they start to, they embed themselves into the stone and the concrete, and he starts to become part of the chair, at least his arm, and he starts covering it up. And I remember watching this scene, the scene, I don't know how long it goes on, but it feels like, probably this scene of him slowly becoming this monstrous thing is probably 5 minutes, may not be that long. It felt very long, not because it was bad, but because I was watching it, and I was completely dazzled by it. To be honest, that's the only phrase I can think of. I was completely just knocked out by how gorgeous this art was, and this animation. And I didn't know this at the time because I didn't know anything about how animation worked or anything like this. But if you read about Akira and the way that it was made, it's a particularly high quality version of Japanese anime. They did a lot to make this movie look sensationally good. And so watching it, I didn't know why this seemed so much better, especially at the time because I was watching stuff, Saturday morning cartoons, that kind of stuff. And I didn't know why this looked so much better. But I knew it did. I knew it did look better. And, come to realize later when I found out some of the making of all that type of stuff is all the work that went into that. It was not on accident. They made this movie look this good. But I was completely consumed with it. Because, again, I hadn't seen anything like this before. And this was just such a masterpiece of animation. I don't know what other words you could really use to describe Akira other than an animation masterpiece, because that is what it is. And I so remember being riveted by that I immediately bought a VHS copy of it, of course, and then watched it many, many, many more times, and have loved that film ever since, and still do consider it most days to be my favorite film that I've ever seen. And part of that is because of that experience of seeing it the first time. And it would be great to be able to somehow go back and re-experience it like I did the first time. I mean, not that I don't appreciate it now. I do. When I watch it, I still marvel at what these animators, what these craftspeople were able to do in terms of making this film that is so lush and gorgeous and magnificent to look at, and just its visual power is incomparable. I don't know of anything else. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that is not me saying that there's no other Japanese anime that's as good as this one. This is the best. And that's not really that. It's more of the fact that for me personally, I'm at an age now that I'm probably not going to experience something like that again. I mean, my tastes are kind of baked in. That's what happens when you're older. Your tastes kind of get to where they are. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And I don't know that I'm ever going to have an experience like Akira again. And part of it is because of that time and place. There's absolutely that element of it, that in that time and in that place, this was something that was just unbelievable to me. Magical is the right word for it, really. And it really just, where I was at that point, I knew I loved art. I mean, I've kind of always known that. But that movie really was what's the word for it? I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing at the same time. It really cemented the fact that art was going to be something that was in my life in a huge way forever, because I looked at that and I realized, even without knowing, the level of artistry involved, it's impossible to see a movie like that and not understand what is going on in terms of, wow, this is what can be done when people are truly the best at what they're doing. That you can produce a work like this that somebody like me looks at and will never in my life forget. I still remember seeing that movie. I still remember that experience with, I won't say total recall because that would be inaccurate. I don't think I've had total recall of many things in my life, but really close to being, I can't smell what the mall smelled like at that point, but I can see it with perfect clarity. The visual of it is so right there in my mind, and there's not a lot of stuff that I can say that about. Like I said, my memory is generally really bad, actually. Oh, wait, did I just erase? Oh, I should have just erased that. There we go. So yeah, that movie, Akira, stands out. It is something special in my memory, which I love that I can remember that, but I can't experience it. You know what I mean? I can't really experience it. To have somebody be able to reset my neural whatevers in a way where I could go back and experience Akira for the first time with none of the knowledge or whatever of it, that would be really fun. I'm not somebody who generally subscribes to the idea, well, if you're going to erase memories, you'd erase it, but no, not really. But that one would be fun. It would be nice to re-experience that in some way, because it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat to have that, to discover something that is so influential to me for the first time. It would be fun to go back and be able to do that again. Like I said, I don't generally say that about a lot of things. I'm not somebody who's like, oh, if only I go back and not really. It's not really a normal thing for me. I don't have that particular desire to go back and revisit things like that. Of course, like anybody else, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't want to go back and see people who are dead and that type of thing. I'd love to go back and talk to my dad for another day. especially with knowledge of knowing, what would happen, to be able to go back. And I'd be fine with the whole thing of not being able to tell him, because, he wouldn't believe me anyway. Who would? But because I think some people, they're like, oh, I'd go back and I'd warn. Some stuff that works for. But let's be honest, I guess I would look like his son, so it would kind of work. But that's not why I would just like to go back and talk to my dad again. I think most people who've lost a parent early on, that's what they would like. I would love to spend another day with our first dog, who we lost kind of out of nowhere. She just got sick, and she was gone inside of 3 days. I mean, there was really no warning with that. And she was just a wonderful dog. And yeah, I'd want to have another day with her, just to hang out with her. Like, I got to be careful. I can't talk about this very much, or I'm going to fall to pieces, because I still struggle with that. Losing Riley was a tough thing. It was a tough thing. So yes, I would use one of my let's go back to the past things. Some people go back, try to kill Hitler, things like that. They're better people than me, because I would go back and see my dad and see my dog. That's just being honest. I could pretend that I would do something more noble with such an ability, but I probably wouldn't. If I could only travel back twice, if I could only go back, well, I guess I'll make it so I don't sound like such a cold-hearted bastard. But so if I could only go back and visit and not actually change anything, that's what I would do. That makes it sound better than me saying that instead of going back and preventing the murder of millions of people, I'd rather hang out with my dog, even I'm sorry, that's probably the truth. I'll allow myself to not get trapped into that by saying if I could only go back and visit with somebody with no ability to change events, then I would go back and see my dad, and I'd go back and see my dog. And that's what I would do. And if I could make myself re-experience something for the first time, I'm being very specific in my wishes here. Obviously, I don't think that this is not traditionally how the wish-making or the magical powers stuff usually happens. You don't usually get to set the parameters of whatever magical thing you get to do, but being that this is all conjecture made up anyway, why not? Then if I could go back and relive something for the first time, and it may seem strange for me not to say, oh, meeting my wife, but when I met my wife, it wasn't like a love at first sight thing. There wasn't something magical in that first meeting. It was very ordinary. My wife and I came to love each other over the course of time. So going back to just that one event is not going to change anything, because it didn't happen that way. It was not a, wow, I looked at her and I knew I'd marry her 5 seconds later. That's a nice thing in the movies. It doesn't always happen in real life. Oh, my thing went out again. Sorry. Maybe that happens for some people. I'm not saying there is not. I don't disbelieve in love at first sight. I'm sure that some people experience that. Good for them. But that was not our experience. So, did my dog just tap at me? Oh, I bet she did too, because it is her time. Well, you know what? That's actually good. Well, let me have this thing come back before I end the stream. Just so, okay. You can wait 1 minute. But yes, so that's why I'm not saying I'd go back and meet my wife for the first time. It wasn't really like that. That wasn't our relationship. It didn't work that way. We were not a love at first sight relationship. We were wow, this person is actually very kind and loving and wonderful and seems to be able to tolerate me and all my screwed up everything, and this is too good to be true type of thing. And then she actually does love me, and it was like that. Because I never have, nor could I ever, just being honest about it, experience love at first sight, because I'm too cynical for that. I would never ever be able to believe that would even be possible for me. So that no relationship I've ever had in my whole life would ever be described in that way. And I don't mind that. That's okay. I don't think everything has to be you instantly know. There is a value to slowly discovering something, the uncovering of something wonderful. I don't necessarily need that to happen for everything, but, I don't mind that it happened that way. I think a lot of people look for that, this thing where they see somebody and they feel like they're going to, use an Italian version of it, get hit with the thunderbolt. And that's not always, I think that's very infrequently the case. I think most people don't really experience love at first sight. They may tell you they do, but I don't know if it really happens that much. I think most people, it's a discovery process. It's something where you uncover the fact that this person is really, really well suited to you. And I think that's great too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that the idea that it happens gradually over time, wonderful for people if they can find the perfect person in the first moment they meet him. Well, wow, that's amazing. And I'm not saying that as being sarcastic or anything. That's amazing. If you can find somebody like that, yeah, that's fantastic. Go for it. I just don't think it happens as much as people like to think that it does. I don't think it's nearly as common as people would love it to be in their head and version of whatever's going on. So, and that's okay. However you find a person that values you and cares for you and is someone that you can feel yourself around and be comfortable with, who cares how it happens or when it happens? The thing is that it does happen. That's what you should strive for. On that note, I think it is time to bring this stream to a close. So let us do our... There we go. And I'm going to, before I forget, I will why is... Oh, I accidentally hit the thing that activated the VPN. I don't need a VPN. No, I don't need a VPN on. I accidentally tapped the thing. Jeez. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for stopping by. And as I saw somebody it says there's been one viewer the whole time, so thank you, one viewer, for sticking around and listening to my ranting, rambling, incoherent stream of conscious thoughts on all kinds of things, from Godzilla to what I would go back and revisit in my memory. If you can, go out there and be creative, or at least experience creativity in some way, even if it's not you yourself doing it. Go watch another stream where somebody's drawing or creating music or whatever. It's good for you. Art and creativity are good for you, whatever form they take. If you can't do that, then at least have a good rest of your morning, day, afternoon, evening, or late night. And thank you for stopping by and hanging out for a bit. We'll see you on the next stream. And on that note, take care.